Well, welcome to What's Broken. I lost the intro footage that I'd started for this, so I'm sort of redoing it. If you've seen any of the other videos, I got rid of that Mazda truck I had and picked up this Pontiac Vibe all-wheel drive. Certainly liking the fuel mileage I get. It's 35% better than the truck got, but I do miss the truck. So having said that, in order to haul the e-bike around to get out and about, it won't quite, I got to take the front tire off and wrangle it into the back, so it's not a lot of fun. So I thought, seeing as I put a hitch on this Vibe, it's the little, I think they're 1.25" instead of 2" receivers. Anyhow, I picked up a solid bar and drilled out the hole. And today I'm going to begin fabricating on sort of a combination e-bike rack and a T-bar that'll fit into the receiver. The reason for this, a few vehicles ago I had a RAV4, and to go pick up, sheets of lumber or 2x4s, it didn't really fit on the top of the car. So I built this so it would slide into the receiver, the 2" receiver on the Vibe. Anyhow, I had this laying around, so I'm gonna, cut it and alter it and make it fit so I can haul stuff on top of this little Pontiac. And I cut up and prepared some of the pieces. So my initial idea, two angled uprights, bit of an A-frame, and this little carved out stub is going to hold the cross rail that the bike sits on. And the reason I'm changing the design to this little A-frame deal instead of just coming straight up from the receiver, which would have been a lot easier, is I don't know about where you live, but Calgary's got this interesting bylaw that if your license plate is obscured, you get a ticket or a fine. A friend of my sister's already received I forget how much it was, but it was sizable. Anyhow, it is what it is. So having said that, I sort of designed this so that the chain set of the bike is, the sprocket's going to be up about there, so should have a pretty good view of my license plate, and that should keep me out of trouble with the law. I think I'll get set up and maybe start tacking some of these pieces together, and then I can get a better idea how this is all going to work. So I'm just taking a few minutes and using my trusty old 60 grit flapper disc and just knocking all this gray, we used to call it mill scale, for two reasons. One, by removing it, my little welder welds a lot easier, and two, when I go to paint, I think the paint sticks a lot better. I'll just show you the before and after. So you can see the sort of the shiny finish, and then it goes back to dull gray. So I did some measurements or marks on the ends, both ends and marked out sort of where the radius of the tire will come. Added a little bit. There's really faint marks, but I'm just going to cut this piece up and it'll become the main support for the bike. Now I'm going to carve up four chunks of, this is 1.5 inches by 1/8. Make them 3 inches long. They're going to come into play for when I make the tire hoops that'll hold the tires sort of in place. I want to drill 5/16 holes through all of these because I'm going to use 5/16 rod sort of for the tire hoops. So I center punched and I'm just going to go through all of them at once. I think that bit's a little bent. Yeah, it did the trick. Let's see how sharp this one is. Yeah, maybe I'll try a different one. That's better. And this 2x2 is going to be the main stub support for the bottom of the bicycle cross rail. I'm just going to cut it down to size. And to make the channel so it'll fit over the hitch bar, I drilled I think 3/8 holes, and then cut up the side with the cutoff wheel, and then just sort of chewed out the trough, so I'll be able to get a good weld on this solid bar, and this will support the cross rail for the bicycle angle. So to square this up, I got 2 squares, so they're both at 12 inches here, lines up with the center, so all the angles should be even with each other. I'm just going to go around and put a few tacks on here and there. So I centered it using these welding magnets to keep it square. This is 1.5 inch angle, so I spaced it, because this is 1/4 inch wall, 2 inch, so I spaced it with a chunk of 1/4 inch flat iron underneath. I'm just going to go put some tacks on this. Okay, now to test fit it in place. So now just setting these pieces in roughly in place. Say 4 7/8. Okay, I'll get this stuff up on the bench, make sure it's still all squared up, and commence tacking. It's clamped to the bench and I got it all squared up. And I'll get some metal on it. This little welder wire feed isn't quite made to, it's a little hard to stick to something real thick. Probably be better if I preheated that a bit. And I got the crossbar for the e-bike set in place. It's, squared this way to the heavy plate on the bottom. And I measured it to the A-frame. So it's probably as congruent as it's going to get. And in order to give a little base for the upright roof support thing to sit on, I'll carve up a chunk of angle. I kind of mark it about here. That way it's above the license plate, so you're still able to see. And I'll pop this out, tack this on, and then figure out the length of the upright. So I did some measuring from this point to where I want the top of the T to be. And it's going to be at 38.25 inches. So I've marked it and I'm just going to chop it up. Okay, so I've got the, I don't know what you want to call it, the T-bar. All squared and leveled and in sync with the rest of this frame. So I'm just going to start tacking it. One thing you want to do, this is made out of the galvanized conduit strapping stuff. Seems to work. But if you are welding on galvanized, you want to make sure that you got good ventilation, because I've mentioned in other videos, if you get the zinc chills or zinc poisoning, it ain't pretty. I've only had it once and I never want it again. The other thing I think I'll do is, not sure which angle I'm going to run them yet, but I'm going to cut up a gusset for each side just to tie this whole frame together. Yeah, so I welded in a couple of gussets. That stiffens it up nicely. So that should work well. You might be asking yourself why I didn't just buy one. Couple reasons. One, I don't know if they're designed with a T-bar so you can load more stuff. And two, I'm cheap. And three, I had all of this stuff sort of laying around left over from other projects, so why not use it up? So I got the bike kind of tied into place. I still need to build a locking bracket for the center. Missed one measurement, so this is a real tight fit, but it'll work. And for the hoops down at the bottom, I don't know if hoops is the right word, cradles? Cradle a better word? Those little 3-inch pieces of metal that I cut up and drilled. So I just put a bend in it. And the idea will be just going to kind of eyeball this. And I'll put another bend right there. I'll bend that and cut it off and bring it back, and then I'll be able to place this other tab at the proper distance. Okay, so I bent up a cradle. I don't want it super tight. Let me bring it out just a hair. Oh, my phone's leaking. It was just a spam number. Yeah, it should work. I'll do the same to the other side and pop it off, and should be able to weld it up. I tied the T-bar e-bike frame just up to a point in the garage here. Set the bike on. Everything looks like it's working well. Made a small alteration without camera. I cut this bar loose from where it was and welded in a couple of tabs just to give me lots of room up here so I wasn't fighting with it. The next thing I want to do is I'm leaving about a 1/2 inch between the sprocket and the the upright, just so nothing rubs. So it looks like I need about 2¼ inches for the little sort of locking, I don't know what I want to call it, locking mechanism that's going to go around this center tube on the bike. So I want it 2¼ inches out from the face to the inside of that cross tube. Okay, I'm just going to cut up a few pieces, get everything ready, and then I'll bring you back. So I cobbled together a bit of a spool out of just some shrapnel I had laying around, a couple of heavy washers, chunk of pipe, and then this sort of big washer with a hole in the middle. Then I carved up a chunk of 1/4 inch, welded a 1/2 inch nut to the back. And the idea will be, and hopefully I don't drop all these pieces, so that fits in the channel. This will thread in and lock. Let me just drop it a bit. Then I've got to do a little more welding. Have a couple of plates coming out with a swing down gate that I can put a lock in, and all of that will be padded on the inside. I've got some sort of neoprene material. And I'll be able to tighten up this bolt in the middle at the right height, and this will swivel so I can get the right angle for the cross rail. And that'll sort of, you know, with a fold down flap, put a padlock in the bottom, that'll lock the hold the bike in place, lock it up. That's the plan. Let's hope it works. So I'm going to take some measurements of this cross rail, and then I'll cut up some of the flat iron I need to make this work. I carved up a couple of more pieces for that sort of locking cradle. Just going to tack them together. I need to weld them like so, with 2 7/8 in between them. I'm going to let those cool down a bit so I can handle them a little better and figure out how to space this. Okay, not sure how much of that I got or if I lost some. I'm just gonna tack these in place. Looking good so far. Two and 7/8, 2 7/8. Got one more piece to cut for across here. That'll swivel and lock. Okay, I cut the piece and already drilled the holes. But the idea will be So I get this little compression spring. So I'll probably put a tack weld on there so it can't be undone. But when this is bolted to the T-bar e-bike frame or rack, got a place for a padlock. Might have to drill that out a bit. We'll be able to flip it up, set the bike in, flip it back down, put a lock in it. So I'll go put this into place. Then I'll turn the camera back on and we'll just see if it basically will work or fit. Okay, I'll just wiggle this down a bit. Everything's kind of wobbling on me. There, that's better. So I'll tighten up the center bolt after I glue the padding and paint everything. This will close in. Put that on. Throw a lock in it. And with the padding it'll prevent this from getting scratched up. Alright, well, I think I'll go clean this, start cleaning up some of the welds. I'm going to go around off camera and finish doing all the welds I need to do because everything's tacked. No point in boring you with all that. And take cut-off wheels or grinding wheels and just round off all these corners so there's hopefully nothing to catch myself on. Then I got to figure out, I want to put a set of lights on this rack up on the corners, so I think I'm going to extend a little bit, maybe with some small angle iron, and just have some additional or added tail light, turning lights, signal lights or whatever, clearance lights, so people will definitely see there's a bike on the back. I don't want the tires and the spokes sort of covering up the tail lights that are on there. Just going to drill a pilot hole right there and then another one lower, because once I put the tail lights, so to speak, on this, I'll run the wires down and can just drop them through this channel. I'm going to have to spend some time on my drill bits. I had a couple of pieces of angle iron and they've been chewed up and drilled, left over from another project. I'm going to use them to extend out, and then I want to mount these lights right about like that. So all the welding is done, and I've started to spread on my favorite color, aluminum. This trim clad stuff goes on easy, and it seems to last the longest. So if you're not overly particular about color, it might be what you want to use. So I'm just gonna install the bike rack on the car. I picked up this hitch at the Wreckers for about a third the price of, or a quarter the price of a new one. And before I installed it, drilled a hole, welded on a 1/2 inch bolt, made a little T-bolt so you can sort of tighten it up if it's not there. You know, there's a bunch of wobble, and you just tighten it up and take out the majority of the wobble, so that'll help. The other thing I did for the pin, I welded on a chain link and welded an additional chain link onto the hitch. You can pop the lock in, and that'll prevent, you know, a little added theft deterrent. Like I say, it's a little wobbly, but once you tighten in that bolt, it eliminates a lot of the wobble. So next we'll be installing the tail lights, or trailer lights, or whatever you want to call it, and wiring that up. So I was already able to easily snake the wire through the center on the left side. Just do the same on the right. There it is. So it's out this side, and these will be plenty long enough to tie in down here. Just going to get out some heat shrink and solder and a couple other things and get things all ready to tie this together. So the park or running lights, they share the brown wire. Just going to clear off some of the insulation. On the longer wire. Whoop. There we go. Just wrap these two together. Just going to smear a little bit of solder paste or flux on it. Put a little heat to it. There, a little coating of solder. Hold everything in place. Might have to add a little butane. There, done. Now we'll move down to the bottom end. So I cut everything, pre-cut everything to length and twisted them. I kind of do the lazy way of this. I just loop them in the middle and twist each one back. Making sure the heat shrink will slide over. And I pre-cut the heat shrink and put it in place. And a little bit of solder paste. Just makes everything stick a whole bunch better. And we'll heat it up and put a gob of solder on. Might get a clip or a clothespin just to hold it so it doesn't keep bouncing all over the place. There, that's one. So I'll finish these two up and then we'll move up to the top. Okay, the lights are all wired in. I tested them, they fit, they work. I found some of that split loom and, you know, ran it over all the wiring so it's a little more protected. The last thing I need to work on is cutting up and gluing some padding inside the sort of bike lock. So to make the padding for the inside stem, I'm going to use this sort of floor covering stuff. Pretty resilient and padded. So I want something about 3 7/8 by 2 7/8. And to hold them all in place, I'm just going to mix up some 5-minute epoxy. Okay.
Right? So you can use.
Just going to squeeze some out. Not sure how much I'll have to mix up yet. Push it down nice and tight. Well, that should be more than enough to finish. I'll let that sit for 10 or 15 minutes. I'll check this stuff. Once it's dry and hard, we'll put it together. Okay, looks like the epoxy is set. Well, that should provide nice cushioning for the main rail on the bike. Take it over and bolt it in place. Oh darn. I have to chew a hole in the center here for the the head of the bolt. So I chewed a hole through the center with a hole saw. Not very pretty, but and the bolt, the head of the bolt's below the profile of this foam. It's gonna be tricky. Yeah. Come on. There we go. Okay. I just have to find the proper height and then I can tighten it up. So I'll set the bike in place. Well, it looks about right. Just have to try to get in here and tighten this up a bit. Well, that's perfect. We'll pop a padlock in there. Just give you guys a shot with the park lights and hazard lights on. Oh, good, good. Nobody should be able to say they didn't see me stopping or turning. Anyhow, I think that wraps it up. Hope you enjoyed it. It was a fun little build, and we'll maybe catch you on the next one. Bye for now.